what we learned on our most recent deal. We were involved in a deal, looked like a great deal. It was across the street from a property that we had purchased in early 2023. Came across our inbox from a group that we had been speaking with, and initially we were excited. We had assumable debt within the deal, sub 4%, so it made the deal look really good. We did our due diligence, we underwrote it, we visited the property, we brought in a partner to help us take this deal down, and then unfortunately, in the 11th hour, we did not win the deal. And we're saying to ourselves, how in the heck did we not win this deal? What did we do wrong? What happened? How can we ensure that this doesn't happen again? So we'd like to kind of talk about a lesson that we experienced in the market so that you don't repeat any mistakes or have to learn the lessons the hard way like we did. So, yeah, Dave.
Well, I was going to say the good thing is not winning a deal is 10 times better than winning a bad deal.
Boom.
Quote that, whatever, but we'd rather walk away from this one with, a little bit of lost time, a cost of a flight, some handshakes, I guess some sweat in the Florida weather. I was pretty hot on our walk. But yeah, I think the way we approach deals, Travis, is generally, I would say we don't overexcite ourselves until we have a reason to get overexcited on a deal. We don't pound the drum too hard until we have pushed it far enough that it only makes sense to really start, knocking down doors and seeing, where this deal is going to land. So we got this one across our inbox. So obviously we found out immediately that it was directly adjacent to our property in Orlando. That gave us great reason to push this one pretty far. I would say we got good guidance on where we thought we wanted pricing to be throughout the whole process, kept underwriting the deal, visited the property, talked to brokerage group, talked about the seller's interest in selling. I thought we had a good pulse on where this thing would trade, to be honest. So we kept pushing the deal. We visited the property, got our partners involved. We're starting to get quotes on the essentials like insurance and PM and all these things. And then we got guidance that ownership group wanted their original pricing, which was a price that we never would have transacted at. So all of that hard work, not for nothing, because we took a lot of good takeaways away from this deal, but certainly didn't get us close to winning this one, which was a little bit frustrating to say the least. Yeah.
And so I was thinking about it, and the question I asked myself, kind of I prefaced before, what went wrong? How can we ensure that this doesn't happen again? I took a couple notes on it, so I'll break down, and then me and Dave will kind of jam back and forth on what we could do better for next time. So let me just pull this info up.
While he's doing that, I'll give my 2 cents. That was a long week for me. I was also visiting Miami for personal reasons and had a busy week before that. I was on the way back home, and I got thinking more of this ownership group. So some background on this deal was they had actually refinanced out of their original debt about a year prior, and not only that, but they had shopped the deal on the market with a different brokerage group about a year prior to them looking to sell again right now, just a month or so ago. I think looking back, one of our big follies was assuming that was in good faith that when they tried to sell and refi'd out, but it was maybe not the case. And we still don't have the whole story. We haven't talked to the original brokership group yet about that deal. We have a deal we're looking at that maybe we'll bring it up. But maybe it was just a case of them trying to be picky about the market, and they're just going to kind of beat up some brokerage teams and see if they can get their pricing, and if not, they're going to hold the thing. I mean, it's good debt they have, so they can hold on to this. So.
Yeah, so to speak to that, I think one mistake that we're going to overlay on that is our lack of tracking the market appropriately. Orlando is our market. We missed this one last year. We did not see, or we did see this property hit the market, but I don't think we did a deep enough dive to properly track this property. If we had, we would know that this property did not transact. So we would have had a data point in our mind saying, okay, this group did not trade on this deal, so now we know there's a chance that they may not trade on the second deal. I don't want to blame the brokerage group. These guys are trying to get deals done. It's a crazy market. Transaction volumes are down. I have respect for the brokers. I do brokerage here in Manhattan. I do office leasing, so I understand, we need to get deals done to get paid. It's a 100% commission-based gig. And these brokers, they're doing their best. I don't think they gave us bad guidance. I think the seller gave bad guidance to the brokerage group. I think they took advantage of a brokerage group who wanted to get a deal to the market, wanted to get a deal done. And these guys kind of held it in their back pocket that they need their price. If they don't get their price, they're not transacting. Had we known that info, we would have approached the deal much differently. We put in an aggressive offer that actually got accepted into the best and final, only to find out that when we did submit our best and final offer, which was more money. We were able to produce an extra, I don't know,
5% increase in
yeah,
that.
on a
Yeah.
nominal basis. What was that, millions? We ended up coming up.
Yeah, we went from what we started, was it 155 or 160 door to like
Exactly.
165. So it's about $4 million somewhere.
Yeah, so we
around there,
came up
$4 to
$4 million on our initial offer, and it was still not close enough for the seller to accept. So that, that was, we took a slight offense to that. We don't, in this business, Dave and I, we're very level-headed. We're not going to freak out. We understand it's a long journey. We have plenty of time, and everything is opportunity cost. Your money is opportunity cost. Your emotions and feelings are opportunity cost. So we don't exist in a realm where we, have hate toward anybody. That's not how we operate. We're always here to learn the lesson, and those are a couple things we could have done better. Sorry, Dave, you have something?
Well, I was just going to say I mentioned earlier, we put a lot of work into not win a deal, but there were some good takeaways out of this, I would say. Rounded out some good partnerships with not only who were going to be our main partners on this deal, I think, they enjoyed working with us, but also our kind of tertiary, secondary partners like insurance, PM Group, etc. The brokerage team, I think, definitely got a little closer to us after this deal. And you mentioned bids. I think it's disappointing to us to go low and be swept out of this deal, but all the other bids for best and final were right around our price point, which affirms that we are putting in good pricing on these deals, in my opinion. It's not like we're coming in too aggressive or coming in too low. All of our assumptions through the underwriting process and the due diligence process were relatively spot on. So, the reps are reps, and you don't win every one, but I would say this one was pretty good as far as the rep goes.
Totally. Another thing that we need to keep track of on the next deal, too, is a loan assumption deal. Mm-hmm. If it's a loan assumption deal, we automatically have to categorize it in our head that this seller may not necessarily have to sell, especially if it's an interest rate that's let's call it sub 4.5%.
Yeah.
Since it's impossible to get debt at those levels, we understand that there is a seller who owns his property at that price and has the debt till this certain amount of time. So I think for any future loan assumption deal, we need to understand that this seller may not be a market seller. They may be, I need my strike seller.
Yeah, especially assumable debt, definitely know the motivation of that ownership group. Motivations on a deal where we're going to be going in with new debt, probably just, cycling their money, getting out of the project, moving on. If they more recently got into assumable or something, clearly they had some intentions behind that. So probably something to notch into a little further, grill the brokerage team a little bit harder, see what's really going on. So.
That was my last point there. The other thing that we could have done better, that we will do better next time, is just beat up the brokers a little bit more. Don't be afraid to push a little bit more, especially now that we have this reference experience. We went through something that wasn't the best result for us. Obviously wasn't the worst result for us. But now that we know, now that we have that reference experience, we could share that with the brokerage group. We could say, hey, Mr. Broker, thank you for sending me this deal. Why is the seller selling here? And we'll get that answer. It's usually like, it's the end of their business cycle. Their investors want to sell, yada, yada, yada. Now we can go the next layer and say, we just want to make sure that we're underwriting this deal appropriately. We kind of got burned on a prior deal where we went all the way to the finish line to find out that the seller wasn't a market seller. They had a price in mind. So with that in mind, does this seller have a price in mind? That's kind of the question I would pose to brokers.
Yeah, and I think kind of like you're saying, it's not just like a police style interrogation on day one, like what's going on here, but just building relationships, getting layers of the onion peeled off little by little as the deal progresses to really make sure we're getting the full story painted there. But to the brokers' point you mentioned earlier, times are a little bit thinner for them right now. I saw an article maybe a week or two ago, something to that effect. The Central Orlando market, I'm sure it's pretty representative of the U.S. It was around 1/6 of the deal flow as far as on unmarketed deals. That is, you have to consider that, and you have to consider motivations from everybody at that point. I think if you reframe a deal in this market now, given that information, and stop to think about it more holistically, if you have 1/6 of deal flow, that means if you're not a panic seller, you can be choosy, and if you're a brokerage team, you are doing whatever you can to win business. So with those two things in mind, when you have a deal where, in this instance, they don't have to sell tomorrow because they just got some nice debt, and you have a brokerage team who I'm assuming is obviously hurting on deal flow compared to what they were doing 2 years ago, you could get a situation where, a lot of business is happening for a deal that may not transact. So just something that if you take a step back and kind of think through it, it does make a lot of sense.
Well put. So that's that's kind of our lesson learned from a deal lost. We always say we never fully lose, we always gain something, but this one we gained a lot of knowledge, a lot of experience, and we boosted a lot of relationships.